Hello, friends. It's Lisa Williams, Chief Inspiration Officer here at Perfect Side Gigs. Welcome back to our interview series, Corporate to Entrepreneur. We are having so much fun hearing from these experts who have made that brave leap themselves and have found their true joy and passion in life as a result of it. We have a very special guest today, Miss Cynthia Kersey. Now, Cynthia, she's the founder and CEO of the Unstoppable Foundation. I absolutely love their mission, which is to bring education, the gift of education, to every child on our planet. She also is a world-renowned speaker and author. She wrote the book Unstoppable, An Unstoppable Woman. I can't wait to read it. And one of the niches that she's found, which I absolutely adore, is she is helping companies, organizations find strategic ways to help our world through philanthropy. So I'm really excited to hear about that. Cynthia, welcome to our show.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We are zooming in from California and Whidbey Island, Washington right now. We're hoping our internet will cooperate with us. So I know you were a successful account executive at Sprint for many, many years. I think it would be really wonderful to start with sharing a little bit about that journey from corporate to your own entrepreneurial pursuit for our audience.
Yeah, so basically I interviewed at Sprint years ago to be an entry-level telemarketer. It was kind of like sales, something completely new. And so I got hired, and then like in 5 months, I got, promoted. I became this top salesperson in this telemarketing center, which shocked me because I couldn't believe they paid me money to talk on the phone. So I didn't feel like I was selling anything. This is during the AT&T divestiture where you had to choose, a long distance carrier. So it felt really quite natural for me, and continued to grow and kind of move my way up at Sprint, and became a national account manager and sold the Kinko's account, which was the first national video conferencing network ever. And so I'm doing great. Like I've got, I'm making a strong 6-figure income. I'm working at the highest levels at Sprint Communication, and of course with Kinko's, my client. But I wasn't happy, like I wasn't inspired by selling telecom. Like it didn't inspire me. So I really started looking at what does inspire me. And I always love stories about unstoppable people, people who had a dream and they had to overcome all of these challenges, and yet they ultimately prevailed. And I had studied those types of stories throughout my life. I remember, reading about Walt Disney. And, you think of Disney World and Disneyland and all the movies, and yet he was on the verge of bankruptcy every 18 months for 20 years. So we see the end result. We don't see the struggle. And it was the struggle and overcoming the struggle that really inspired me. So I decided back in 1996 that I was going to quit my job, cash in my entire life savings. My husband, I was married for, 20 years, almost 20 years at that point. And he was supportive. I supported him when he left a job to start his own company. And then he did the same for me. And so I decided I was going to leave it all to write a book called Unstoppable, really to share these stories. And I'd never written anything more than a college term paper. So I didn't know I could write a book. I didn't know how to write a book. All I knew is that I was inspired by these stories and I wanted to share them. So literally, quit my job, like I said, cash in my life savings. We downsized our life to write this first book. And 18 months after the book comes out, I'm living my purpose, and my marriage ended. My 20-year marriage ended. And I spoke with my mentor, Millard Fuller, who is the founder of Habitat for Humanity. And he said, when you have a great pain in your life, you need a greater purpose. And that was when I started to integrate giving into my life as an entrepreneur. So he had just come back from Nepal. He said, why don't you build a house for a family in need? And I thought, how many houses would I need to build that offset this pain in my life? And literally, Lisa, when I got to the number 100 houses, which is $2,000 a house, that felt bigger than my pain. And so literally while I'm healing and crying and grieving, I'd be out there speaking, and I would just share this project to raise $200,000 to build 100 homes in Nepal with Habitat for Humanity. And that experience totally changed my life, and it totally changed the trajectory of my business, because I took 18 people over there to Nepal the next year. We worked on, 3 of the 100 homes that were built. And I thought I was doing something great for these beautiful families. It changed my life. It gave me a purpose. It gave me a reason to get out of bed in the morning. And that was when, as an entrepreneur, I started integrating giving, as a speaker, as a coach. I coached like thousands of people going through network marketing companies, through my program, Unstoppable Challenge, and always integrated giving as a way of giving back.
I love it. And I think I've been recruiting for 25 years. And anytime I talk to somebody that's in transition, it's one of the things I tell them is build some type of philanthropy into this time that you have on your hands. What can you tell our audience about that power and law of giving that you've experienced? Because I just love the story about how you're helping organizations now do that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting. I think we've all been raised, we hear give and it shall be given. And yet, the consciousness of society is there's not enough. If I give to you, it means there's less for me. And at minimum, people will give, I'll help you if you help me. And that is not giving, it's trading. And I'm not saying there's anything.
Oh, I think we lost you for a minute, Cynthia.
That next year, selling a $14.95 book. So I made more money.
I'm going to have you pause for a minute because you broke up for a minute. Can you back up we missed a little part of that.
Okay. Hold on one second. I got to think about this. So interestingly enough, when I, did my Habitat for Humanity project, I'm a single mom living on a $14.95 book, right? So I didn't know people that had money. I didn't have a lot of money, but I was driven by this purpose. And I ended up raising the money. But what was interesting about it is I earned more money that year selling a $14.95 book than I did as a national account manager at Sprint Communications. And that really intrigued me. It wasn't even my intention. It certainly wasn't what was driving me. And so I looked at, what was behind that. And I started studying it. I've actually been studying it now for, nearly 20 years. And as I said, the scriptures say, give and it shall be given. And yet, of course, people feel like there's scarcity. If I give to you, there's not enough for me. And it's actually the opposite. Giving invokes the law of attraction. Mm-hmm. So giving activates receiving. It's not the other way around. I'm not going to wait for money or good to come to me before I give to you. Just by activating the good, whether it's money, whether it's kindness, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a blessing, whatever it is, it activates that receiving in our own life. So when we give, we don't know where it's going to come back. I mean, everything comes back that we put out there, right? Whether it's anger, whether it's resentment, whether it's, whatever, and love and joy and happiness and prosperity and giving. As you give, it comes back to you. I mean, that's the law of cause and effect.
Mm-hmm.
So every person that I know now, and I know some incredible givers, Bob Proctor, is a dear friend, Mary Morrissey, like so many people, and you can't outgive them. You can't. I've tried. I don't even really try anymore. I just give because I love them so much, but they understand the law. Sandy Gallagher's the same way, Bob's partner. And when you understand this, it really does change your life, and it informs. There's a really great book by Thomas Troward, and a chapter in the book, it's called The Hidden, what is it called? Hidden, when my mind is blanking. But the chapter is called The Spirit of Opulence.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about that we're really centers of distribution. And it's not like we're trying to hoard the little money that we have, but we see ourselves as centers of distribution. And as I give, as I receive, I give to others. I've heard this term, tipping the bill, which I totally love. And I didn't know it was called that. I do that all the time. If not even more than the bill, and nothing makes me happier. It's like when you go and you, especially now with everything that's happening, I can't even imagine not at least giving at least 100% tip. I can't even imagine anybody not doing that right now. Because it means so much. It means so much. And it means so much to me. Like, it's a joy to be able to do that. So I just, it's always looking, I run a foundation, and of course I give to the foundation, but I really model my life is looking for how can I be of service? How can I give? How can I, they call it impression of increase. How do I increase your life by my own life, whatever that looks like.
I love that. You said something about when you were a single mom, and I think I was a single mom also, and I think there's such power in being that. Women, we do so many things that we don't give ourselves credit for. What would you say to that single mom out there right now that doesn't, they've built dreams for a company, and what would you say about the passion they would feel if they actually focused on what they could build for them and their children?
Yeah. Well, first off, being in a situation, being a mom, being responsible for a child, going through transition, it's not always easy. One thing that people say a lot when they hear my story is that I didn't stay in anger. Like, I didn't move into resentment. I mean, I may have felt that for a week or two. Like, I didn't stay there. And I remember talking to Bob Proctor, and I had gone to this psychologist or whatever, like a counselor, right when my husband and I separated. And he went immediately, he was in another relationship. I mean, that was the impetus. And the only reason I say that is that, he moved in immediately with this woman that he had a relationship with, and it was really painful. So, so I went to this psychologist, or like I said, whatever, and she said, it's okay to be angry. You could be angry for 6 months, who knows? But you work through it. And Bob Proctor's like, what are you talking about? You can't be angry for 6 months. Mm-hmm. Like, that is going to hurt you. And he said, when you think of your former husband, you bless him. You bless him and you let it go. And so I did that, Lisa. I did that. And we ended up still having a very good relationship because I chose not to hold on to anger or resentment, because who does that really hurt? It hurts me, it would hurt my son. And, you know, I mean, I think that's one of the greatest blessings of my life, going through a painful divorce. You know, when somebody's in a relationship with another person, I think that's very challenging. And yet I really saw it for what it was. And you know, like Bob said, it's not about you. You know, it's never about us. And people do things for their own reasons. You can't take it personally, even though it feels very personal. But as soon as you can get to that point, Bob gave me this thing. It says, it is what it is, accept it. Harvest the good and forgive all the rest. And the sooner we can move through that process, the happier we're going to be, the higher vibration that we're going to be in, the more that will come back to us. It's really quite extraordinary how that works. So getting back to a single mom, it's like, is there any resentment that you need to forgive? Maybe it's forgiving yourself, but really get some support to forgive, because it is what it is, right? You're not gonna change it. And then as far as dreams, I mean, you know, I've got a list, you know, a mile long of moms who have gone out to do extraordinary things. And there's all sorts of support, things that you're doing, Lisa, with this webinar series. You know, you're giving support. Find a good mentor. That's a really important piece, or a coach. You know, find someone who can support you, hold you accountable, you know, maybe get into a mastermind group. You know, there's support out there.
Absolutely. I love that. I want to talk to you more about that. I want to do a series on blended families at some point, and I think you'd be a fabulous fit potentially. We can talk about that another time.
That'd be great.
I saw an interview that you did with Jack Canfield, one of my favorite authors, and you guys were talking about the 7 qualities that people possess that live an unstoppable life. And I was intrigued because I find actually a lot of those people build in corporate, but for whatever reason, they don't feel they can necessarily translate it to something for themselves. Can you share a little bit about those with us?
Was it the 7 qualities in my book of an unstoppable person?
Yeah.
Purpose, passion, belief, preparation, team, building a team, creative problem solving, and then perseverance. It's interesting that you asked that question, because I left corporate America to write this book. So I used these qualities in deciding what did I want to do. You know, like purpose. It's, you know, what is it that really inspires you? What is it that gets you out of bed in the morning? And there's a process to, you know, kind of identify, are you the kind of person that, that loves creating or building or encouraging or inspiring, or, I mean, there's a whole long list, right? So you look at what is the verb that you most resonate with. You know, some director, fixer, you know, I mean, there's like this big long list. And then who is the group that you most want to do that for? And what is the end result that you want to create? So anyway, so it's all in Unstoppable, but it was kind of like, okay, I love inspiring people. Inspiration is my word. I really try not to do anything that there isn't inspiration involved. Even if I know there's money, even if I know I can make money doing it, if I don't feel inspired by it, I feel like that's in spirit, right? That's my guide. And anytime I've ever done something for the money or talked to somebody else and they decided to do something for the money and not because they loved it, it really became a challenge for them. So then the second part is once you decide, you know, you identify what is your purpose. Mine was to, you know, inspire people to believe more deeply in themselves. Like that, I just love that. And then you look at passion. Well, so what are you passionate about? There's so many ways to inspire people, right? You could work for the Peace Corps. You could become a teacher. You could become a big brother, big sister. I mean, there's so many ways. And I always loved reading stories about unstoppable people. I was curious. I love learning. I love books. So I thought, okay, what would be one of the things I could do that's in alignment with my purpose and my passion? Mm-hmm. So writing a book fell into that category, even though I didn't know how to write a book at that time, but you can always learn. So anyway, that's kind of the process. And then the third is belief. You have to believe it's possible. And when I started, I didn't really believe. I believed enough to quit my job and cash in my entire life savings. So I believed in myself that I would deliver. I had enough. Could count on myself. I didn't know if it would be successful. So many times I had to borrow the belief of Millard Fuller or of Bob Proctor or of other people that had belief in me, even when I didn't have it in myself. And, you grow into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people, they get to a point in their career and they realize they don't even know how they chose it. They didn't ever really purposely sit down and say, this is what I'm meant to do. Now, I'm very intrigued by something you focus on. You talk about conscious capitalism for organizations and finding, solving a problem in society and helping, in some ways, kind of the company find its soul in a sense. Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, yeah. So, conscious capitalism is looking at the whole. So it's not just looking at your stakeholders, the shareholders, but it's looking at all of your stakeholders, whether it's employees, whether it's the community, it could be your vendors. You look at the good for everyone. And one way that people integrate consciousness or is through causes. I mean, that's just one way. And I'll give you a good example is, what is their name? The name, it just was there and it left. I'll tell the story and then USANA. There you go, USANA. Thank you. Sounds like, but when they started, Dr. Wenz, his purpose was to end pain and suffering in the world. That was his purpose, and people responded to that purpose. So he created these nutraceuticals, built a team very quickly, had tens of thousands of reps. They're doing great. They're on fire. And then they started to notice, despite expanding internationally, despite trying different things, marketing plans, sales went flat. And they brought in a woman named Peggy Pelosi. And she went into the company and she found that these people, they lost their soul, right? They're not thinking about their purpose anymore. There's kind of infighting. People aren't as inspired. And within a relatively short period of time, that happened. And she was intrigued by that. And she's thought, well, what if we created a project that would be in alignment with the purpose and the mission of the organization? I'm wondering how that would impact it. So she created a relationship with the Children's Hunger Fund, in which they would be distributing USANA's nutraceuticals to children in, orphanages, like children who are very malnourished. And what happened was, as people got involved, the distributors, the board members, like the staff, people started giving. And when they saw the news come in, the pictures, the impact that it was making, it was like they got on fire. Mm-hmm. And their sales grew exponentially, their stock grew exponentially. They became rated one of the best companies in Utah to work. And nothing changed. They didn't change their marketing strategy. They didn't change their international plans of distribution. The only thing that changed was that the company found its soul through that cause. So I think, my husband actually wrote a book called Compassionate Capitalism, A Journey to the Soul of Business. And we're very good friends with Raj Sisodia and John Mackey, who wrote Conscious Capitalism. with Whole Foods. Like there's so many examples that when you care about the whole, that you actually become more profitable. When you look at the numbers, people that actually do business that way, not only do they have a workforce that's inspired, but financially it's a good move as well. So whether you're an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, an organization, if you're a big company and you don't have a cause, it's really, in this day and age, it's pretty, I think, unacceptable for large organizations to not have a way in which they're giving. And as they authentically do that, it really does change their company, and it changes the people that they're giving back to. And it's just a beautiful thing that happens in an organization when they really do find, I'll call it that, their soul.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it just goes into the whole more abundance mindset versus scarcity mindset that I've heard many of our experts talk about. For those of you watching this later, we're in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis right now, and a lot of people have been impacted by this crisis. I think there's a lot of people, I hope our audience is thinking about what's next. I would love to hear what's next for you. What are you excited about? What is the future going to hold for you? Share with us about that.
Well, I'm going to look into my little crystal ball right here. And well, it's interesting because I'm sure everybody's heard that in the Great Depression, there were more millionaires created during that time than any other time in history. And we're certainly finding it today. The thing that scared me the most is that what we do with the Unstoppable Foundation is a lot of the ways that we raise money and awareness is through events. So I speak at Bob Proctor's events, Mary Morrissey, speaks on behalf of the foundation. I mean, so many people that have events bring me in to speak because they want to inspire their audience about giving. Like they know how that works. And so I was concerned, like, wow, maybe there aren't going to be events for a while. And what we're finding, Lisa, is that people are having events and they're making the same or more money. And I could go through a big long list than they did before when you've got the hotel and all of the other things. So I don't know what the future holds. I don't know. I'm just kind of sitting with, well, how is this going to impact us in the way that we do our outreach? What are other ways that we could do that? What would be a project that inspires me? And again, I have some things that, my husband's like, why don't you do this? Or like, as a project. I'm like, I can't. I'm not inspired by it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what the creative piece, like that next step, whether it's, writing another book. But I do know that inspiration will be, the deciding factor on what I decide to do. And I don't know, I'm still in the uncertainty and just open and looking for it, right? Just like how I was before when I was looking for a project or a nonprofit that I wanted to support. You put it out there and it comes forward. So I in the meantime, we're doing our business. We're supporting our kids and families in Kenya as they're getting ready to go through this. They're a couple of months behind the United States, and ensuring that that they survive so that they can get back to thriving again.
Yeah, absolutely. You brought up, just children in general, your mission to educate children. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this series is I do have a concern about our next generation of workforce. I think a lot of them are graduating and they see this life in corporate that their parents have led, and they don't see themselves there. Mm-hmm. What can you tell that new graduate, or maybe that kid that's gosh, I don't even know what to major in, things like that. What can you tell them about the spirit of entrepreneurship and the power and passion and joy that you've found pursuing that?
Mhm. Well, again, I think, it's really being aware of where your inspiration lies. So kind of going back to those principles of or qualities of purpose, passion, I would start those two. I think that's the most important because you can work on your belief, you can prepare, put a plan together, you can solve problems, put your team and persevere. But for a graduating person, I think honestly they should read Unstoppable. I
Mm-hmm.
never say that, but it's a great graduation gift because you're reading about all of these people who've overcome adversity, and it makes you think, I would like to do that. And look at this person, they did it, and look what they had to overcome. So I think it's just really being in the inquiry of what gives you joy, what lights you up. Don't become a lawyer because your mom and dad thinks you should become a lawyer. That's the worst thing that you can do. So I think it's really looking for what is your purpose, and then the passion. Maybe you care about health and wellness. Well, there's a lot of different paths that you could do that. You could become a medical doctor. You could become a naturopath. You could become a chiropractor. You could become all sorts of things, right? A reflexologist. There's a whole list. But it depends on where's your passion. Is it more of a holistic approach? One-on-one, you could do things online. There's so many things. You could write a book. So I think that's the key, Lisa, of really looking at where am I inspired? What is a bigger purpose for me? And that simply means, what is that verb? What is that verb that I most love to do? And then the way to do it, your passion, and lining up with your natural qualities and things that you really enjoy. And when you marry those two, that is where the power is.
Yeah, absolutely. I find so many of our experts, they seem to have this guiding power that just is this belief that there's something that is greater they're meant to do. And some of them it's faith in their life. Some of it's just hope. I'm curious about that in your life. Is faith a part of your life, or what's your philosophy, and why do you think you have been inspired to do these things that you've done?
Mm-hmm. Well, so, that's a very good question. So faith, absolutely is a big part of my life. It was how I was raised. And I think everybody has faith. What do you have faith in? When you sit in a chair, you've got faith that that chair is going to hold you up, right? Faith in a higher power, faith in God. There's a range of what we have faith in. And so absolutely. And I have all sorts of beliefs. We all do, right? So my belief is that everything is working in service to my highest good, everything. And, knowing and believing, that God is guiding me, and it's guiding me through inspiration, which means in spirit. So those are just really supportive belief systems, right? If I believe everything that happens is in service to my greatest good, that things aren't happening to me, they're happening for me. All of those, I'm sure you've heard those too, but those are things I actually believe. And when you believe that, it's not that you love every challenge that you go through, but it's like, where's the gift here?
Yeah.
And, and I believe that that God loves other people through me. God loves me through other people. So I get to be an extension of love. When I look at my team, my family, my community, we have nearly 100,000 people we're working with in Kenya. And it's an honor to be able to, I'm their ambassador, right? I'm their person. There's a lot of people, but it's like, I'm their voice. And, and it feels like an honor to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I can't believe we're almost out of time. I do have one more question. I've been asking all of our experts. You know, we all have gifts that we hope to leave our children, our legacy. But if you didn't have monetary or, you know, assets that you were able to leave your children, but you could leave them qualities and advice, what would that look like for your kids or your son?
Mhm. Yeah. Good question, Lisa. That's a very good question. So yeah, I think honestly, again, it's, what would you love? Really looking at what would you love, not what would you like, what do you think you can accomplish? What would you love? What would inspire you? And use that as a launch pad for figuring out how do you do that, right? It's never like the how. What do they say? A strong enough why can bear almost any how.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever it is, it's all possible, but you got to get in touch with what would I love, not what can I afford? What does my wife or husband or children or parents want for me? What would I love? And I think and then, how can I serve? I mean, when you really understand giving is truly the highest form of self-love we can give when we give to others. And of course, to others, it's a very, very powerful way to live our lives.
Absolutely. I love that. I think that's a great way to end. I feel like I could talk to you forever. Cynthia, you've been brilliant. I know that you had a complimentary gift that you wanted to suggest to our audience. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Basically what I did is I interviewed, much kind of like this, people about unstoppable success moving forward by giving back. So I looked at people who were running organizations, entrepreneurs, whatever, just a range of business people, and said, how has giving, first off, what would you identify as your secret for success? And then how has giving informed your life in your business? And so all sorts of amazing people have just talked about how, what is their guiding principle? And then how has giving informed their business, impacted their life? And so it's a really lovely way of learning firsthand from people all sorts of different experiences, how they've created success and how they've integrated charity and giving and contribution as a way of life and as a way in their business. So
I love that.
It's very inspiring, of course.
Okay, awesome. So audience, we'll make sure you have the link for that. So friends, we are out of time here. I'm so grateful for your time, Cynthia, and to our audience. Thank you for tuning in to another corporate to entrepreneur interview. We've had so much fun interviewing these experts who have made that brave leap themselves and found true joy and passion as a result of it. So please be sure and tune in to our next interview. This is Lisa Williams with Perfect Side Gigs. We appreciate you and bless you in your life journey, friends. Bye. Bye, Cynthia.
Bye. Thank you.